Welcome back to Fine Home Talks. I'm here today with Teresa Perruzzi from Tile America. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so talk to me. You're an outside sales rep. So what does that mean?
So I work with Tile America. I work primarily with builders, remodelers, interior designers, and architects, as well as our showroom design consultants, just to kind of create a full team. So it makes the process of tile selection and tile design a lot easier on the end user, as well as the people that are in the trade.
Nice. It's funny how we were actually just talking about this yesterday, I think, a group of us. The idea of choice is so great, right? Like, it's just like, oh, you can have anything. But for so many people, it's exciting until it's paralyzing, you know? So talk me through the process of us as a company contracting. I send them to you. Talk me through how that works and looks.
Sure. So one of the first questions, we like to ask is, okay, what is your vision? What is your budget?
Yeah.
What is your timeline?
Yeah. All good questions. And people don't like to start with that.
Right. But you gotta just put it out there.
Yeah.
You gotta figure it out. If we have a tight budget, we should know that from the beginning so that we're not designing with things that are out of the budget.
I just want to interrupt because it's such an important statement. Like, budget, most important conversations have to start with budget first, right? I don't start with, let's go look at every home possible.
Right.
And I use the analogy all the time that just like anything else, I'm not going to walk into any store. I'm not going to look at a luxury designer handbag if I have a Kohl's budget.
Right.
Right. And even those stores, I'm going to walk into the luxury store, but they have their own lines of, here's our top tier, here's the, So it is so important to have that conversation up front. I saw a video that was talking about a tile company, a flooring company. And they talked about like how someone was like, oh, well, like trying to flex about their price per square foot. And she's like, sir, I have never sold this particular tile because it's so expensive. And he was like, I could afford it. And she was quoting the price per square foot, and he hadn't done the math, right? Like on like what that really was.
Right.
Like, because the price per square foot, people don't understand what that means sometimes, and they can't visualize until you tell them, actually, you need however many square feet. Like, what's a typical, like a typical like kitchen is
like say for instance, backsplash tile.
Yeah.
Typically it's around 30 square feet.
Yeah.
It can be more, it can be less, but that's kind of like our baseline. If somebody comes in and says, I need 300 square feet for my backsplash, the red flags go up. And we're like, wait a second, what are you doing? Are you tiling all the way to the ceiling, all of the walls, because that just doesn't quite make sense.
Makes sense. And some people do have, like, for different maybe religious reasons, or maybe they do have a secondary, like a butler's pantry or something that you do want a matching, maybe then depending on the size of the home.
Right.
But yeah.
But it's not very common.
Right.
And so those are also questions that we ask kind of from the beginning. Do we have plans? Do we have measurements? Do we have layouts?
Who took the measurements?
Yeah.
Right? Who took them?
Yep, exactly.
If you did it.
Who's the contractor? Yeah. Who's the installer? Because really, to have communication with the people that are doing the end work also is very important, because there's certain ways to install things, and there's details that go into the design that you want to make sure that that's getting to the person that's actually putting it together.
Yep.
And then certain materials need to be treated and handled in certain ways. So that's also very important. I mean, you can have the most beautiful, exquisite, expensive tile in the world, but if the person that is handling it and installing it is not handling it properly, it's not going to turn out right, and it's not going to last.
And not all tile is right for all applications.
Right.
Thank you. I was thinking surfaces, but applications is a better word. And that's super important to know too. I mean, when you walk into a showroom, I have a knack. You may not know this about me. I have a knack for picking out the most expensive thing in a, and even if, like, it's not without, like, not even on purpose. I just like, oh, that's pretty. And like, yeah, that's, literally the most expensive. But it might not even be something appropriate to go into the bathroom or go into the kitchen, right, for different reasons. And that's why the conversation always starts with the not so fun part, right? Because like, if you just start looking,
it gets overwhelming and you don't know what you're looking at.
Well, yeah, and exactly. Like, you could be looking at something, number one, that you don't want to afford, you can't afford, or it doesn't even belong there.
Right.
So like, let's be clear, like, Pinterest is great and these social media pictures are great. Getting inspiration is wonderful. However, it's very, cabinet color, lighting, all affects the final look. So I can imagine that sometimes people are almost misguided with these inspirational pictures, just like getting a haircut for us, right? Like, it looks so good
on that
person. And then you leave the salon and you're like, oh, well, 3 days later. Yeah. And I didn't do it the way that they did it in the salon. And then all of a sudden, you have like buyer's remorse and a bad haircut, apparently. So yeah, I'll let you continue with the process. So it's having the discussion of the budget, understanding the project, who's doing what, where it's going, and then you're really getting down to at least the like narrowing process, right? Yeah.
So then we can talk a little bit more about, okay, what's your lifestyle? Do you have kids? Do you have pets? Do you have high traffic? Do you have well water? Do you have city water? Do you have a cleaning person, or do you clean on your own? What sort of maintenance do you expect to put into your tile? Different types of tile are going to require different levels of maintenance. If we're looking at ceramic, porcelain, glass, these things are pretty easy to maintain. Porcelain is one of those products. It is very dense. It is very durable. You can use it in commercial applications. You can install it outside. It's going to survive a freeze thaw. It doesn't need to be sealed. It's not going to stain. And just the looks alone that you can get in porcelain, you can get porcelain that looks like wood. You can get porcelain that looks like marble, fabric, printed patterns. I mean, the world
what's
of
out
porcelain
there
is amazing.
It's really, I don't know if like you would say, but it feels like the last 10 years it's been like,
it's incredible.
Like, some of the stuff I see, I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Like, crazy.
Yeah.
And the finishes are so insane in a great way.
Too.
Yeah.
And now a really big trend are these large porcelain slabs. So you can get these 4 foot by 9 foot porcelain panels, and you can do your entire shower with, like 3 pieces, solid pieces, no grout, no maintenance. It just looks like a solid slab of marble.
I like that.
Like doing a natural stone, a marble, it's beautiful, it's timeless, it's elegant, but it could require a little bit more maintenance, and it's going to sort of change over time. It's going to age over time. Some people, a lot of people actually are discouraged by it when they hear, oh, I have to seal it. Oh, I have to be careful with what I clean. But honestly, like, I was actually, I was in Jamaica last week with my daughter. We took a little vacation.
Nice.
And it was gorgeous. Around the pool, all of the floors, everything, the hotel, everything was natural stone. Everything was marble.
Wow.
There was white marble outside around the pool.
Wow.
It was honed. And you know what? Even being exposed to the elements, being exposed to so much foot traffic, it was still beautiful because it just sort of ages and patinas over time. So as long as you understand that it's not going to be looking the same, think about too, like these old buildings, all this ancient architecture, they used natural stone and they're still standing and they're still beautiful. So it's just something to keep in mind. People get scared of it, but it's just a different material, but you can absolutely still use it.
But I think that you make an important point that there's almost, I like to call it like unintended consequences, right? Like if you're buying something without being educated about these things, you're going to be pretty unhappy.
Yeah.
Fairly quickly, depending on what's going on, right? And I think about too, and I please jump in, the chemicals that we're using for our bodies, for our in the shower. There's a lot. Our showers routines for most people have changed in 30 years, right? Like 30 years ago, it was different. We didn't have, maybe we did, but I don't think it was as popular to have like oils and scrubs and this and that. Like there's so much that we're putting. Blue, good point. The purple shampoos and different products that have these additives that I don't know chemically how they would react, especially an abrasive scrub that tends to get everywhere. That could definitely be something that people need to think about, need to be aware of, and the frequency of treating things, sealing them if needed, but also like generally cleaning things, right? Like I have an example of my aunt and uncle who in Florida, she wanted the dark floor. And it was a beautiful tile. And she loved the look. I love the look. I like it on pictures. But guess what?
Did she bleach?
No. 30 seconds after you clean it, you see everything. And they're two adults with they have a grand dog, right? But there's not full time in the home with them. And even with them, they're like very clean people, but it drove them crazy. And things like that, even like you don't necessarily think about,
right?
And the square sinks. Sometimes it's very difficult to clean those edges. Right? Like I love the look of them, but I don't know that I want one in my home just because of that factor. Like that would drive me crazy. So to think about how it's not just the look,
it's practicality.
100%.
And that's something that I always keep in mind. And I know that a lot of us, like our design consultants, we're there not to just sell product and put pretty things together. We're there to help guide you and make sure that you are making the right decisions for your lifestyle, for your budget, and to kind of pose those questions and educate our consumers so that they do know what they're getting and so that they do know what the life of their tile looks like. So, okay, you really love that marble bathroom. Okay, it does fit within your budget. Make sure you seal it this often and make sure you're not using anything acidic or abrasive when you're cleaning it, such as like vinegars, bleaches. You really want to stick with pH neutral cleaners, not only with marble, but with porcelain and ceramic too, because the grout doesn't like bleaches and vinegars. It actually will eat away at the grout. And then that becomes another maintenance issue. People get really mad at the tile because their grout looks bad, but it's just because you're not using the right things to clean.
It's such a good point. And I think there's one of two ways that people go is like, I want to be green and natural and use all of the, baking soda and vinegar for everything. And then the other side of like using every scent, like every chemical in scent possible. I usually feels like, I'm sure there's a lot of people in between, but the education around that is none.
Right.
That in mainstream media, right? Because they're just trying to sell you products.
Right.
They don't care. So just taking the time to really get this is huge, because I don't think a lot of people would normally think about that at all, because it doesn't happen right away.
Right.
Just like anything else, right? It's not necessarily like, oh, you cleaned with vinegar and now it looks horrible.
Right.
It takes time.
Right. And that's another discussion to have too when making the selections. What type of grout do you want to use? What sort of additives do we want in the grout? Do you want grout that's virtually no maintenance, or, do you want something like just a regular grout?
Right.
That, may discolor over time. These are, there's just so many options, and with that comes different price points, but there's reasons that things are maybe a little bit more expensive. It's because it's going to ultimately save you time and save you money in the long run. If you're going with something that's a little bit better quality, it's going to save you some time and money in the future.
It's like you were supposed to be on this podcast, because that's what we talk about all the time, is that you go to these big box stores and just like look at a 2x4, right? If anybody's, I'm sure most people have gone in and tried to buy a board at, these Lowe's, Home Depot. A lot of them aren't even close to straight.
They're never straight. They are never straight.
They're not even like remotely close.
No.
They're like, the bow in them is like, I can't even make my hand do it, right?
Yeah.
But it's similar to tile.
Right, because the same thing happens with tile.
Yeah.
And we have quality control. The thing is too, a lot of times with these big box stores, people will buy excess for their project, and then they will come back and return the excess. And then because they're returning, excess material, now you have mixed lots. Especially with these big box stores, they're buying huge quantities of things. They're getting multiple lots on one pallet. So you're not always getting the same dye lot, and it's not always calibrated the same. So you might actually have the same tile, but it might be slightly different sizes, slightly different shade variations. And a lot of times too, you ask installers, a lot of our installers especially, they don't like working with that product because it does have extra like warp to it.
Yep.
Now, anything that gets fired in a kiln, like a ceramic or a porcelain tile, is going to have a little bit of a bow. It's just the nature of the product.
Yep.
Because it is clay, there is water in the clay, and then when it's fired, the water evaporates and it causes a little bit of a bow. But, there are limits to that. So, if products that we're bringing in quality products, they're going to be a little bit more expensive, but they're going to be so much easier to install. Everything's going to be from the same dye lot.
You're going to have more consistency.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, there's not going to be those issues with the job, because we take pride in our product. We take pride in our customers' projects. We treat everything like it's our own. So if there is a problem, we're going to catch it. We're going to fix it. We're going to make it right. It's important.
I think that to a consumer, sometimes you drive by like your showroom, right? And you're like, well, who goes there? Like, why would you go there? Right. But it's important to remember the differences, is that just because a place is a one-stop shop, so sort of, and I say that in like air quotes, because they do. The truth is they do have seemingly a little bit of everything. it doesn't mean that it's the best of everything. And it also doesn't mean that just because you can, you should.
Right.
Right? There's reasons why Tile America exists and is thriving. Very busy, right? There's a reason why you're here today. And to keep in mind that some things in life, the cost is completely worth it.
Right. And really, when you're looking at apples to apple, like we're really not all that much more expensive, and you're getting so much more the service and the knowledge. I mean, even our step out of the showroom and back into the trade counter, you've got guys that are coming in, talking to the people at the trade. They have questions about how to install things, things they've not done before. And, we're able to help guide them through that. So there's whole like waterproofing systems, floor heating systems.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a question. I've never done this. What's my pitch supposed to be? How far is the drain or the wire supposed to be from the drain? These are all really important questions, and to have somebody that can just answer them for you right then and there, as opposed to, oh man, where do I find my answer? There's nobody around here.
Or what is that?
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
Like, what are you even talking about? Making stuff up?
Right.
Telling them to Google it.
Right. Like just solving problems. Like, hi, I have this problem. How do I fix it?
Yeah.
And there's going to be somebody in Tile America, multiple people that have
the
solutions.
Knowledge, the insight. Yeah. Completely.
And a lot of them have been in the trade and in the field and doing the work and installing.
Talking the language. And have the experience, the knowledge 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
Even the designers in the showrooms, you think, okay, they just put pretty things together. That's not true. We do a lot of hands-on training. We go to these like Schluter events, we learn a lot. We get our hands dirty. So we really are able to offer knowledge and insight that pretty much, I would say, not a lot of other places can that sell tile. I mean, we're tile experts. That's what we do.
Love it.
So we know
the Schluter. I can't ever say that properly, but that the system. I went to the training that we went to. Were you guys there?
We go all the time.
You go all the time. So it was at one of the casinos, and it was the coolest. Like our guys were doing the same thing. They were getting in there and practicing, and it was a rigorous certification. And that was amazing. The whole thing was awesome.
It's so great, and it's a great way to learn about the product. And they're just such great people. It's such a great company because they really are about solving tile issues. So even if it's not necessarily like their product that's the best solution, they'll have an idea or they'll offer another solution. They're great. Like, I love my rep. He's amazing. So
I think it's really cool to build this network, right? Of like trusted professionals, our team. And it's vital. It's completely vital. What are you like seeing? Like, what's in, what's out? What's the newest thing?
Cool stuff.
So
texture. Texture's really popular. Large format. So we're seeing everybody sort of trend to larger scale. They want to eliminate the grout joints. They want to simplify. Texture is huge. Color is back. I think we were in the white and gray for so long.
We were. Everybody's so sick of it that they're like anti.
So it's kind of funny how we watch these things happen. I mean, there's always going to be those classic staples too, like 3x6 white subway. But then there's also lots of different versions of things. Like, okay, now we're seeing a shift in even the subway tile. People are looking more at like the Zalige, the handmade style, things that have a more organic, natural feel, things that are a little more slightly imperfect, have some tonal variation. And I think it's psychologically in design world, we're seeing everybody shift into like a warmer, cozier kind of wanting to make that like that sort of environment in their home instead of being so sterile. Especially with like, you know, with COVID and everyone being in their homes and everybody spending a lot more time at home. We're wanting to make those places just feel a little bit more zen and a little bit more cozy. So we are definitely seeing.
I love that color is coming back.
Yeah, me too. And the colors are incredible, the glazes, and then when you add the texture and the pattern and the dimension into the color, I mean, you can just do so many things.
It becomes a piece of art at some points. Like there's showers and backsplashes with the countertops, and it really becomes almost like a living form of art, which is so fun.
And it's more personal. It's instead of everybody having the same thing, you have all these different options, all these different colors, all these different textures. You really can make your space your own and what you like, and you know what brings you joy. That's what I ask people all the time. Oh, I want to sell my home in 10 years. I'm like, do what you like, because in 10 years when somebody comes in to buy your house, they're going to want to make it their own anyway. So do what makes you happy.
I always, when I'm consulting for people who eventually want to sell, I'm like, all right, well, what's your timeline? First, I've had way too many people renovate and then move. And that like hurts my heart a little. So in that circumstance, I'm always like, yeah, well, you know, number one, we talk about, is it worth it? Right? If it is, again, still hurts my heart. They might go a little bit, the word I use is like vanilla. They might do a little bit of the plain Jane, safe, because it really doesn't matter and it helps paint the picture for somebody. But I say the same thing. Like, if you're going to spend all this time, all the money, might as well, you know, live it up. If you know, if that really works and it's a vibe and it's a great design choice, and even if it's not, and you love it, it's your money. It's your money. Like,
time and energy,
you know,
into making it happen.
So like, while I really do believe in keeping in mind resale, I also don't think it should be like the end all be all, like you can't do this because you're eventually going to sell. I think that's ridiculous, like, and stupid. Like, you're going to sit in a sterile like environment for however long, just because everybody's going to sell eventually, or most people, right? So like, do what makes you smile and what you bring, to your point, what brings you joy.
Exactly. And you know, all those, like, the fixtures are going to need to be updated at some point anyway. So when people get to that point where, okay, we could use a new toilet, or okay, we could use a new vanity, let's redo the bathroom. You know? So. Totally.
Any last like tips, tricks, things to think about?
So I'd say, you know, if you're thinking about or getting ready to do a bathroom renovation, for instance, one thing I like to keep in mind, you know, you're renovating a bathroom, you're not going to want to do it again for a long time. It's a big expense. It's a big project. So think about, you know, the future also. You know, are we maybe going to want some grab bars? Are we going to want maybe a level entry shower? You know, how's the aging? You know, are we going to be aging in place? Are we staying in this home for a really long time? Maybe you're still really young and it's not something that you necessarily want to think about right now, but it's something definitely to think about in the future. Also, you know, injuries and accidents happen too. So maybe somebody gets into a car accident, and it would have been really nice if we renovated this bathroom in such a way that we can get into this shower without issue. So it's always a good idea to think about stuff like that too. Just making the space a little bit more accessible. Think about universal design. How is this going to work for everybody?
That's a great point. And including, you know, maybe you don't have a pet now, but maybe you do want a pet, and you know, like, are you gonna wash them? You know, like, are they gonna go in the shower? You know, things like that. And even small, you know, like thinking about again, cleaning. If you're gonna be doing the cleaning,
right,
versus hiring somebody, making sure that the person that you're hiring is using the correct products to clean.
Right. Right. And then, you know, speaking about people you're hiring, make sure that the people that you're hiring to do the work know what they're doing and that they are asking the right questions, especially if they don't know. I know you guys are really great. So
it's tough because I like cringe when the cheapest is not always best. I want to like make a song, a little nursery rhyme. Let's teach it in school. Let's just remember that your home is your biggest investment for most people.
Right.
That is, but they don't treat it like that. That's what a lot of people don't treat it like their biggest investment, and they're trying to get a coupon for the thing, and they see the big price tag and they don't value it.
Right.
And to them, I say, wish you well. They're not our particular customer because it's difficult to, like, our job is not to convince people, right? Like the way I see it, like it's not to kind of showboat our worth in a way. But just keep in mind that these small details do add up over time. And, you know, if to your point, didn't even really, you know, like hit too much about it, but the consistency of color of the tile that you're installing, if you're getting it from the big box store and then you see that one odd tile that's in the center of the room. I have shown houses. I have seen floors that are tile floors and showers and backsplashes that are installed completely incorrectly. You can see it. Sometimes on a flip right away.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's the first thing
Even before the paint dries.
Yep.
And you're like, that floor is going to buckle.
Right.
That there's a huge dip in that. That tile is going to crack.
That grout's already cracked. They don't
Already
have the proper
cracked.
underlaminate.
Didn't even have time to dry.
Yep.
And the attention to detail, the thing that what people don't understand, it's not just aesthetics.
Right.
That's what kills me. It's not just the way it looks.
Right.
It's what happens to that over time. And when water is seeping through and getting behind whatever is behind there.
Right.
Because we don't know really how it was installed. We just, well, we can imagine, but you know.
Right. You don't know those issues exist until they're a problem.
A problem.
Right. And then it's so much more money to rip it out and fix it. So, I mean, okay, this installer's charging a lot less, but you really need to figure out, well, what are they really putting into it? Why is this person double? Because this person's taking all these shortcuts and not using the proper materials and products to do the job correctly, whereas this guy has done it enough times and he knows what he needs to do and how much it's going to cost to do the job properly, so he doesn't get that call back.
Yep. 100%. And sometimes for people, the after effects, depending on what the situation is not even something obvious right away. It's health.
Right.
I all of a sudden don't feel well.
That's huge.
Right.
Water, mold.
Mold.
Huge. If it's not waterproof correctly, or if it's not done, you've got water that's not draining and it's stuck behind that wall. If you're using mastic as opposed to a cement product, mastic is not going to cure. This is, something that we deal with just because, these old installations from like years and years ago where they didn't really know that was a deal.
Yep.
The tile's popping off the wall. Why is it black behind there? Or why is my grout turning black even though I keep bleaching it? That's not the problem with your grout. That's something telling you that there's water behind the tile. It can't escape and mold is growing. It's a huge thing.
Yeah, huge. And a lot of times people you won't always see it.
Right.
Or if you see it, there might be very subtle signs. It's not necessarily like in your face where all of a sudden there's a bucket of water. Right. It's not always that way. So, just the conclusion is be careful. Be careful who you hire. And understand that taking the extra step to seek out professionals is always worth it.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for coming, and I like to finish by asking everybody, what is your favorite part of your home?
Me?
Yeah. I know.
I love being outside. I love being in my backyard. So I don't know if that counts.
It
as
does
part of my
count.
home. But
It 100% counts.
I love being in my backyard. So I've got a stone fire pit that I built, and the birds chirp, and I have
comfy chairs and stuff.
Yeah, it just makes me
it.
so happy. So my yard is probably my happy place.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this has been great.
Thanks.